Alright, guys, I'm the NFL Addict, and today I will be making my NFL record prediction for the 2021 Las Vegas Raiders. So, if you're watching this in the future, this video is not for you. The Raiders, last season they started off really good. There was a point there towards midseason where I honestly thought that the Raiders team from last year was going to make the playoffs. I didn't think they were going to win the AFC West, but I thought they were going to make a wild card spot, and I thought there was, an okay chance that they could, maybe even win a playoff game. But then they hit that Jets game, almost lost to the Jets. They had to score a touchdown on the last play and did, and they won the game. After that, though, it was absolutely horrible, and they really haven't done much to fix that this offseason. I mean, in the draft, they got Alex Leatherwood, which I guess does fill a spot for them at right tackle, but I feel like they were better right tackles on the board, and I also feel like offensive line isn't their biggest need. That defense is not the greatest. I mean, they don't really have. I mean, they got Jonathan Abram at strong safety. That's it. That's really. I mean, Cleveland Farrell maybe. I guess he is kind of okay, but other than that, their defense really isn't there at all. It's just really bad, and that offense. Derek Carr isn't terrible, although it was kind of showing whenever he got hurt against the Chargers, and then Marcus Mariota went in there, and they looked really good. I mean, that was probably their best late game, and they still lost. I mean, they do still have a pretty solid wide receiver core. John Brown, Henry Ruggs, and Hunter Renfrow, and Darren Waller. He's a tight end, but I still think of him in there as receivers. And Josh Jacobs as the running back. So that offense can put up some points, but that, I kind of like their offense. I just, again, Henry Ruggs, John Brown, and Hunter Renfrow aren't, superstars. They're going to be okay, but they're not going to be amazing. Darren Waller, he's like last year, he's probably going to be their biggest target. They didn't really change that. So that wide receiver core isn't great. It is solid, which is why I talked about it. It's really going to all lean on Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, and the old man, Derek Carr, to get it done. Let's go ahead and get started. You came here for predictions, so let's go ahead and start, showing them. All right, they've got a rough schedule here. I'm looking. They really don't have many chances. I mean, if you're a team that really doesn't have a defense and you're relying on Josh Jacobs to do all your work and tight end core, I don't think this team's going to have all that many big plays in the air. Really, I mean, it's hard to get them on the ground. Even Josh Jacobs isn't that type of back. In week one, they're going against Baltimore, who they added some wide receivers, which is what they needed to do. They fixed their offense, kind of. I mean, it didn't need that much fixing, but they did. They got it back to really good level. I don't know how to, else to say it. I think they're going to get the win, or I think Las Vegas is going to take a loss against Baltimore. They dropped on 0-1, and then they have to go into Pittsburgh, who has such a strong defense. It's going to be really hard for Las Vegas to do anything. And then that offense with Najee Harris, and I mean, I don't like the offensive line at all. I feel like that offensive line is an issue that maybe Las Vegas, if they had a defense, could exploit. But really, with everything else that Pittsburgh's got going for them, Pittsburgh's going to get the win here in week 2. And now they have a home game against Miami. It's a rematch from the infamous Ryan Fitzpatrick game, wherever he had his helmet grabbed and pulled back and he threw a dime down the field. If you remember that game, you know why that was so, that's why I'm talking about it, is because it was an insane play, and it's really what that game is going to be remembered for a while, that play. But we can't talk about last year's game without talking about this game, which is going to be pretty rough for the Raiders. They're going to make us a team that has Jalen Waddle. They're going to make us a team that has Tua Tagovailoa, who, I mean, if he can take that second-year step, the Dolphins can be really good. Obviously, I don't think he will, but I also don't think that he's going to be terrible. He wasn't terrible last year. He just had some flaws. I figure he'll get those, kind of fixed out, and Miami can get the win here against Las Vegas. All right, and finally, they have their first division game. They started off 0-3, but teams have started off 0-3 and made the playoffs before. It's not too crazy to think that they can turn the season around. Especially these upcoming 4 games are going to be very, very important. If they can win these 4 games into their bye week at 4-3, and I'm not saying win 3, I'm saying win all 4 and then enter their bye week at 4-3, then they have a shot at maybe pulling something off here. But you look at this, there's just so many tough teams. There's a couple games that they can, probably pull off, but other than that, these first 3 games are pretty tough, and then they really got to get something going. It's gonna be a tough season for the Raiders. How good their freaking division is, and it's gonna be tough for them. They go into the Chargers, and I actually think that they can probably split with them. The Chargers, that offense is really good, so I mean, I just feel like it's a divisional game. These two teams are kind of, near the same level. I mean, you look down here, 8-7, it's whatever. I'm going to have the Chargers win here, and I'm probably going to have Las Vegas win in Week 18 just to screw up their draft, a little bit. And so now they're 0-4. I don't know if teams have probably made the playoffs off of 0-4. It's probably happened. 0-6 is about as far as I'm willing to stretch it. Maybe a team has miraculously turned around. I'm not exactly sure. I'm not an expert into NFL history, just NFL now. In Week 5, they have a home game against Chicago. But Chicago has Justin Fields. Chicago now has a pretty okay offense to go along with that pretty good defense. And I feel like Las Vegas, I feel like their defense is not going to be enough to stop Chicago and, Justin Fields. If Justin Fields plays how I think he will, and I assume that he will be starting in Week 2, I'm sorry. I just really think that it's hard to whenever a team has a rookie that is going to start, but they've also said they're going to start another quarterback. It's really rough to predict those. But I'm going to have Chicago win in Week 5 if they have Justin Fields. If Andy Dalton is starting, then that's a pretty easy Las Vegas win for me because I like Las Vegas's offense, or at least that running game, and I feel like they could get the win. Then of course that is only if Andy Dalton is starting. I think Justin Fields will be. So that's why it's so hard, because there's some of these games that when I'm doing the Bears predictions, it's going to be tough to do all those games because all those games are going to be back and forth. But when I finish doing my normal predictions, I will do best case and worst case scenario. And when I do best case scenario, Las Vegas will get the win here. They'll probably sweep the Chargers. I'm not gonna spoil it all, but all right, now they have a game away at Denver, and Denver now is another team that I feel like they might actually be a smidge bit better than, but I feel like that Denver they have a worse schedule, as in the teams they play are worse, not they are worse, or their schedule's harder, and they're a team that I feel like is kind of probably worse than the Raiders a tiny bit, but I also felt like the Raiders were worse than the Chargers a tiny bit. Again, I'm probably going to have Las Vegas split with Denver. Unfortunately, they don't play them at home until Week 16. And anytime I have a team split, I always have them win the home games. Obviously, it could be different. I mean, they could win these two and lose these two, but I just do the home games just because home advantage, maybe. Who knows? Finally, though, Week 7 at home against the Eagles, who sold everybody for Jalen Hurts. They are relying on him. This is really the year to see what he can do with absolutely nothing. And the Raiders finally, after 6 weeks of losing, they get one win before heading into that bye week. Looking 2 weeks in the schedule and knowing they've got Kansas City on the horizon. All right, they're 1-6. I'm sorry, folks, but I think at this point it's kind of over. They kind of stumbled. They stumbled opening. They had 3 tough games. They picked the wrong. I mean, if they were playing at home here, if these 2 games were flipped and it was a home game here, they'd be 3-4. But it's just because these 2 games were home. I mean, if I flip these, then it's not going to matter, though. By the time they get to Week 15, they're going to be so far gone from the playoffs. But right now, they're not out of it yet. I guarantee a 1-6 team, maybe it's like almost statistically impossible for them to make it, but it is not impossible. So now they've got a pretty important game here going into the Giants stadium. I always say going into the team, which makes absolutely no sense. But the Giants, that defense is really good. It is pretty underrated in that offense with Kyle Rudolph and with Kenny Golladay now added. It's going to be pretty good, and I feel like the Giants are going to get the win here. Or Las Vegas is going to take a loss. They're going to lose to Kansas City. They're probably going to get swept by them. I don't think any die-hard Raiders fans are going to think that anything different. Now in Week 11, they have a chance. These 2 teams are on pretty even terms, I feel like. Maybe not terms, but they're pretty similar. Cincinnati did not like the Jamar Chase pick. Should have gone with Penei Sewell. They should have focused this whole offseason on their offensive line and not just one signing in the offseason that I've talked about. I've talked about the Riley Reef signing who's a player that I never really talk about and I don't really know that much about. Way too much. But at the same time, when you look at the Cincinnati team, they're pretty similar. I don't like either of these teams' defense. However, I do like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd better than I like what the Raiders have got going on offense. Maybe that running game for the Raiders can overpower them, but I'm still going to have to give Cincinnati the win here. Raiders fans are already typing their mean comments. I'm so sorry. You guys are a lot better than this. There's so many, this is not a good matchup for y'all. Best case scenario is going to be a lot better. There are a lot of these close games that are going to flip in your direction, but there's also a lot of tough games. And there's also a lot of close games that are going to flip against you in worst case scenario. In Week 12, they go into Dallas. It's a Thursday night game. Dallas, I don't much like what they've done. Didn't do anything to help with that offensive line, which was one of their biggest needs. It was offensive line and secondary for me. They did a lot for their secondary, I give them that. And they also re-signed Dak, which is a good thing, but it isn't great. They really overpaid him, in my opinion. It's worse than that Bud Dupree signing everybody was talking about with the Titans. But speaking of the Titans, whenever I go back and do my updated predictions, it's probably going to be a lot different now that I've got Julio Jones. I feel like Dallas can get the win here anyways. I don't think I have to say too much. I mean, a lot of Raider fans probably clicked on this expecting me to make me like 9-8. Maybe the best they've seen is 10-7. Nope, 1-10. Now they have a home game against Washington, which is basically kind of the same as the Giants. They have a really good defense, except for I like Washington's defense. I always end up comparing Washington to the Giants anytime I talk about it, anytime my team plays the NFC East. But Washington has an amazing defense, and then they went out, they added Adam Humphries, and they added a lot of players to that wide receiver group. They also added, I keep on forgetting to mention, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Ryan the Man, Ryan Fitzmagic, Washington's going to get the win here. They are probably on their way. I mean, it's going to be in between Washington and the Giants for the NFC title. I mean, you look at these two teams, they're kind of falling out of the race, even with the 4 games that I've already predicted. They're going to get swept by the Chiefs here. Come on, there we go. Now they're 1-12, but you can basically pretend that's 3-12, because you've got these 2 games down here. I'm sorry, but these 2 games are going to be tough. Now they have to go up against Cleveland, who, in my opinion, is one of the better teams in the league now. They've got a really stellar offense in that defense, especially that secondary. They really ramped up this offseason. I mean, they get their 13th loss of the season. Split here, they get the win. Now they're 2-13. They go into Indianapolis. That Indianapolis defense is pretty good, and I know they didn't get a second wide receiver to T.Y. Hilton. That's his last name, T.Y. Hilton. But they used to have a pretty good offense, even with Carson Wentz. And I'm gonna give Indianapolis the win here, and they split with. I mean, they're 2-14. Why would you win? But they do. But hey, let's do worst case scenario. And in my opinion, worst case scenario, that's it. That's worst case scenario. I don't see them getting swept by Denver. It can't happen in my opinion. And I can't see them losing to Philadelphia. Those are the only 2 games that I think 100% they will win. Now, again, worst case scenario isn't like pretty close. This is just like everything goes wrong. Obviously no injuries or nothing, but just they all play pretty rough. And I feel like that they could get swept by the Chargers. All right, now, best case scenario, I can see them sweep the Chargers. They could win all 4 of these games here. Like I said earlier, these 4 games are going to be pretty important. If they can win these 4, that shows a lot. They could beat Cincinnati. So they could go from 0, they could lose their first 3, but then they can turn it all around, go 5-2 in the next games. But then 7-10, that's as best as I can. That's as best as I can see. I'm sorry, that's as. This is far. I'm trying to look at these. There has to be. Yeah, all these I can't. These are just like so tough. The rest of the games that I picked, these 3 games, or these. I think I'll have to lose all 4. These 4 games are close games, but the rest, I mean, this just shows how tough their schedule is. That their best case scenario, which is pretty unlikely, which has Andy Dalton starting, which has Drew Lock regressing even more. I mean, anyways, let's go ahead, take it back, tell what I think will happen. Wait, did I have them at, there it is. I was wondering, I was like, I didn't have them losing to Philadelphia. There we go. So 3-14. Don't be mad. At least you aren't a Jaguars or Jets fan. But see, here's a weird thing, and I know I don't like to scroll down and look at all these, but Whoa, 3-9. I'm gonna have to figure that out eventually. I don't know why they are 3-9. Why are they? I'll figure that out at some point. But they were like, I don't know. They had a better record, but I still feel like the Raiders are better than the Broncos, which is why I had them winning in Week 16. It's just, their schedule is so tough. I really want Raiders fans to understand that I feel like you guys are kind of a middle of the road team. I feel like you guys aren't a 3-14 type team. It's just your schedule is so tough. Like I could see, this game against the Giants being a close game. It's just not close enough. Like when I kept on going to change this game and maybe even this game. Oh, I should have changed. Best case scenario is 8-9. I'm sorry. The Raiders could beat Dallas. I don't know what. I forgot to mention that. So if you're still watching now somehow, 8-9. So that's your little treat for watching, is that I think you guys could beat Dallas. So just to visualize it for anybody skipping through the video and wondering what the heck's going on, 8-9. That's your actual best case scenario. 8-9. Not 7-10. See, middle of the road team. So yeah, they have a tough schedule, and best case scenario is 8-9. I should end the video before I keep sounding stupid. Thank you so much for watching this video. I have things to do. Please, be here for my next one. Like and subscribe if for some reason you liked it. Let me know in the comments why you didn't like it, because if you're watching this video, you're a Raiders fan. If you're a Raiders fan, you probably don't like